Good morning, Summit Church. Pastor Jasper here, and excited to bring you another devotional today. We're going to be in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. And here's what I want you thinking about, or here's what I want to answer, is how do we get from misery of our experiences on planet Earth, to having courage, confidence and courage at the same time on planet Earth? So let's look at verse 6 here, and then I'll back it up. Paul says this, so we are always of good courage. That piques my interest. I'm wondering why in the world, or what in the world is giving him so much courage to be able to say we are always, no matter what, of good courage, right? Now, let me take you back up to these first few verses. I'm going to walk through it really quick, because he's going to say this. Look at verse 1. He says, for we know, right? So it's talking about knowledge. So you want to have something relevant about what you should be thinking on. Think on these things. We know this is a truth that the tent, this is our body, earthly body. That is our earthly home. See, he defines it, is destroyed. If your body dies, we have, this is something we know, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. So body versus heavenly home, right? Or heavenly body, right? And he says in verse 2, for in this tent currently in our bodies, and here it is, we groan. There's misery, right? Wait. He just said we're always of good courage. But in verse 2, if you look back, he is admitting that we groan. We're in misery. This is horrible. This is a strong word of emotion that he feels within in him. And he's having his brothers and sisters relate to what he's saying. And he's like, hey, we know what this is like. It stinks to be in this body that's weak, that's dying. It succumbs to so much sickness and pain and disease, but not only that, we're tempted with things that we hate. We're constantly giving ourselves over to things. We're constantly failing, being rude to people, putting ourselves first, being selfish, hurting the people we love the most close, just constantly groaning and being in misery. Can you guys relate? Misery of the knowledge of the wickedness that is in my body, right? So this is what he's talking about. He's saying we know that though if this tent dies, we have a home in heaven, though, a heavenly tent, a heavenly, not tent temporary, but heavenly home that is eternal. And he says, for in this tent we groan. This is now current, longing. So there's this groaning, but there's this longing for the future, right? To put on our heavenly dwelling. Man, we want this. We want to get rid of this. We want this. Ding, ding, ding. And look at verse 3. He says, if indeed by putting it on we may not be found naked. What does he mean by, he doesn't want to be found naked? What does he mean? He explains it here in verse 4. He says this. He says, for while we are still in this tent current, we groan, reiterating, being burdened by what? We just explained it, the weakness of the flesh. And he's saying this, not that we would be unclothed, right? I don't want to be naked. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying let's just get rid of our bodies altogether, but that we would be further clothed, right? You know, I've only got on like a shirt and underwear now, and I'm in the Arctic. It's not sufficient. I need more, right? So he's realizing he's lacking something. He's lacking something that only God can give, and God will only give in the future. And then he says this, so that what is mortal, here's what's lacking, mortality, right? We're weak, sinful, transient. I think that's how you spell it. Weak, sinful, transient, temporary, all of those things. I want the mortal to be swallowed up by life. Life would be all the opposite of these things. The life that we're promised by God for believing in Jesus. Now look, here's groaning. All of this is groaning or misery. How do we get here? How do we get to courage? All right, look at this verse here. Look at this. Verse 5. He who has prepared us for this very thing, right? The very thing. What is this very thing? Well, it's all of this that he talked about, this body being swallowed up in life. He who has, and look at this, prepared us. He who is he, it is God. He has prepared you. He has prepared you. One day when your body dies, and it will, to be swallowed up by life, and you will awake into a body or a heavenly dwelling that you cannot comprehend now, but all you do know is it's what you're lacking, and it is far better than anything you could imagine. And look what he's given us right now, though, to give us hope. He has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. Guarantee. What is this? It is hope. It is security. It is a down payment. The Spirit, the Holy Spirit that resides in you is God's proof that I'm going to do this, right? Okay, if you're ever to doubt that your body is going to be made new, don't doubt it, because I've given you my Holy Spirit to guarantee you this is going to happen. Paul says, I think in Ephesians, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's in Ephesians where he says you've been sealed by the Holy Spirit. So, right here, so because of this, because of the hope we have, we are always of good courage. So what is the bridge between groaning now, but then having courage now? It's hope. It's hope. It's hope, right? Hope. Hope brings us to a place of courage and confidence that we can have right now, despite the groaning we feel in the flesh. And he says this is good. We know, here's something else we know, something we think about that's in our mind. We know this is true, that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord, right? While we're in the tent, earthly tent, we're not with the Lord, which is where we want to be. So right now, what are we doing? We're walking by faith, not by sight. Yes, he repeats it. We are of good courage, and we would rather be, okay, we can all admit, away from the body. We don't want this. Blah, 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 blah. We want to be away from the body, and we want to be at home with the Lord. Yes, that's our desire. That's what we want, but we're not. So, what do we do then? So, whether we are at home or away, whether we're in heaven or on earth, what do we do with all this? We make it our aim to please Him. We make it our aim to please Him. The road from misery and groaning to courage is hope. Now that you have this hope and you have good courage, how should you respond to this God who has prepared you for this and given you this and promised you this? Whether you're here on earth or in heaven, guess what the heart that understands and thinks on these things does? It makes it his or her aim to please Him, not yourself. I mean, this is the very opposite of the natural way we live life. We want to please ourselves all the time, and that brings up all types of symptoms of arguments and dissatisfaction and discontentment. Most counseling sessions, I bring people to this because I trace their heart back to the fact they're simply trying to please themselves. And the symptoms of pain they're experiencing is because they're not doing this. They acknowledge God. They say they're Christian. They want to be a part of things. They want to be in heaven. But at the end of the day, their greatest desire is not to please Him. And they don't want to please Him because they don't understand this wonderful truth. And this wonderful truth isn't what's guiding their heart into courage and into hope and reflecting on these things, which the person who understands these things is welling up within their heart a desire to want to please Him. So church, let me ask you today, in all of this, are you groaning and in misery, understanding rightfully who you are in the flesh and the weakness of your flesh? You can have courage, but you must think on these things. You must study this. Let me ask you this, though. Is what you know that God has given you lead you to a place to want to, out of the abundance of your heart and your love to Him, to want to please Him, because that should be your greatest desire. And if that is your greatest desire, you will experience the greatest amount of contentment and satisfaction that can't be found from trying to please yourself. So church, be of good courage. God has a heavenly dwelling waiting for us, and he's given you the Spirit as a guarantee of this. And I hope this encourages you today, and I hope you walk with confidence in the Lord, not in yourself, but in the Lord. And let's make it our aim to please him, especially during this time of hardship. Summit Church, I love you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless.